That is the 6th line of that very beautiful piece by Gurdjieff and de Hartmann. And Gurdjieff produced 3 streams of work: the work of the emotional centre with de Hartmann, the work of the moving centre with de Salzman, and of course the book with de Beelzebub. And it is possible to be taught directly by those manifestations of Gurdjieff's life. And if we add to that the 2 contexts that he also taught, the first context of working like a man, which means something like working like an animal all day and night without human rights and without the United Nations to protect you. It's simply having a great faith and not shirking any responsibilities, to work like a man. And then the 5th line, the inner, concealed, yogic work that was not given but could be derived. And we could say that those are the 5 lines of the real Gurdjieff work. Hello and welcome to you wherever you may be. This morning in one of my practice sessions, I noticed that I'd started daydreaming whilst doing Qigong. And Gurdjieff's teaching is hard to grasp because our lives are hard to grasp. What the path of evolution really points to would be quite shocking to people, because they imagine that they are people already. The way Gurdjieff understood people was very unusual. He said that we had been constructed by the forces of nature, one aspect coming from your parentage and the other coming from the conditions of the cosmos at the time of your birth. And that this created a planetary body that, unlike the planetary body of a tree, was animated, so it moved, talked, argued, fought, and ate. And that around us there are many different kinds of emanations and forces and feelings. The sun, the moon, the people around you. And this brings into the planetary body many different influences that are responsible for the animation of that planetary body, or that person, you might say. And somewhere inside of that is a slender awareness, and that is all a person is. A person is something like a walking tree that has eyes and can just about notice that something is happening. Humanity would be greatly shocked to realize that the animation of their bodies and their struggle and difficulties with life didn't mean a whole hell of a lot, because most of it was really very automatic. But that with great diligence and care, and with the influence of highly gifted teachers, our eyes and our awareness could grow from that slender reflection, and to grow wide and gradually to take control of the entire machine. Over the body, the moving, the feelings, and the thinking, to become animate in a previously solely mechanical creature. And these ideas cannot be understood by people. Last week I talked about the positive and negative halves of the centers, but like a flash I had another insight listening back to that video I made, and I dug through some old diagrams and I saw once again the absolute accuracy of Gurdjieff's ideas, and that the real meaning of that is that simply those centers are those that are responsible for struggling. To struggle, they have to be able to oscillate from one side to another. In the octave and in the human being, there are 3 stories and 3 centers per story, making 7 in all. 3 struggle, 3 don't struggle, and 1, although it struggles, you don't use because it's responsible for your breathing. And in the section on dimensions, Gurdjieff says that every 3-brained creature, his main duty is to weave together the holy forces in the middle story at his level. That is the same for the archangel, the angel, and the man. They all weave the holy forces, of course some at a very refined level, in a world of light that is very far removed from us, and we can only understand it in an abstract, metaphysical way. And if we classify the centers like that, it reveals a great deal about the structure of the octave, and the journey of an evolving being along that octave. Here, Kenneth Walker recounts what Gurdjieff taught him. I would advise you, Gurdjieff said, for the present, to think of these divisions of man in terms of functions rather than of anatomical structures, and they should be studied as such. He then developed the idea of these controlling centers or minds, further by subdividing them into two halves, the positive half and the negative half. In the intellectual center, these took the form of an affirming half and a denying half. They stated that the thing was so or that it was not so. He said that in moving center, the division into negative and positive was only a philosophical one, but that in the instinctive center the two halves dealt with pleasing sensations and with painful ones respectively. He then returned to the emotional center and said that we would probably expect him to connect the positive half of the emotional center with pleasant emotions and the negative half with unpleasant emotions, but actually the emotional center did not possess a negative half. In expressing and in feeling unpleasant emotions, we'd made use of the instinctive center instead. This fact that nature had not provided the emotional center with a negative part was of great importance, for it clearly meant that unpleasant emotions were not essential to living. Yet in spite of their being unnecessary, we spent most of our time immersed in these unpleasant emotions: anger, jealousy, disappointment, regret, irritation, and many others. We went so far as to cherish these harmful activities of ours and to invest them with an entirely spurious dignity. Poets and dramatists wove them into poems and plays, and artists chose them as favorite subjects for painting. That work of genius, Hamlet, was made out of material supplied by man's negative emotions, and Hamlet was the most admired of all plays. I think this is a touchy subject, but a subject I have a lot of experience about, and I think Gurdjieff does not give us a good picture of the truth here. There are those many people who simply self-calm themselves by denying their negative emotions. They just chop them, and therefore they do not live, and that is a lie that many fourth way groups do. And there are others, of course, that drown in their emotions, which are always the same and mechanical. But of course these aren't the only two options, and in the last 100 years there has been a great deal of effort in psychology and psychiatry to try and reach the truth that is inside these things and that can illuminate and give a real sense of meaning for us. Emotions are a very large system. They are a world in themselves. They are a higher level of functioning. In fact, even our intellect, or the functions of the mind, with the many different kinds of eyes, the different kinds of attentions, the different kinds of reflective and pondering modes that are available in the mental center, this is also an entirely new world that humanity seems to have no interest in. And when we talk about negative emotions, that also pulls in the many eyes themselves. The emotional center, the mental center, and yes, even the moving center are mountains that can be climbed, that deliver results, that are new worlds that people do not know. But they cannot be explored unless you go inside, because it is there, at the emotional center of the middle story, that the reconciling current starts to rise into the third story, which is why it is connected to the false crystallizations of that story. It is there that the sky opens up. It may be that in ancient days, Mary, Mother of God, being a very devout and pious woman, living a very quiet life in a desert country, and with nothing like the racetrack of the modern world around her, living in peace and devotion in the white light of that land, she could possibly have gradually risen up and produced many beautiful flowers. But that is hardly our context today. Today, anybody who wants the spiritual path has to be far more aggressive and deliberate. There is no harmonious development anymore. There is only life or death, all or nothing. Let's talk about the sixth sense. Often when I do my practices in my apartment, I have several small square tables with sharp edges, and if they are facing towards me as I practice, I don't like it. And so I turn them so that the flat edge is towards me, which still I don't like, but it's acceptable. And I believe that at a distance of more than a meter I can feel the pointy edge of the table because it's interfering with the astral body. I'm going to read something out from C.S.Nott where he talks about the sixth sense. He says, in answer to a question about so-called supernatural faculties such as second sight and telepathy, Gurdjieff said that they arose from the moving instinctive center through muscular contractions or through molecular fluctuations of the emotional center. A movement in one center is at once communicated in waves to the other centers and to all parts of the organism. In earlier times, before they became spoiled, people could communicate with each other and even see what was going on at a great distance away. Now this faculty is preserved only by those who are called uncivilized people, among some of the Lap, for example, or Red Indian tribes, or even Australian Aborigines. Or it happens to some people by accident, and then it is regarded as something queer. More than once I saved my own life and the lives of my men by listening to the inner voice of the sixth sense. In the New Zealand and Australian bush I frequently got out of difficult situations by letting the unknown sense have its way, or more than once by letting the horse I was riding have its way. I've had many experiences of sensing things at a distance and of foreknowledge of things which actually did happen. So have many people of my acquaintance. Unfortunately, spoiled as we are by education and upbringing, these experiences of the sixth sense commonly come in a very general way, and we are usually unable to profit by them. It is often difficult, moreover, to distinguish between what is set going by the imagination and what is really sensed and felt. In any case, the real experiences have little or nothing to do with the mind. They come from the moving instinctive and feeling centers. When Gurdjieff said, "We do not aim to construct something new, but to recover what is lost," it applies to the vanishing sixth sense. Earlier in this passage, C.S.Nott says that he had survived by more than once letting the horse he was riding on have its way, and I've learned with my own inner journey to connect with the many voices, strands, and feelings inside of me, of which there are a considerable number, and in some cases to give a wild horse a large field, that all the voices inside of me, no matter how one-sided, ignorant, or violent they may be, are sincere according to what they understand. And that is a painful lesson to learn. And it is the same in the world. Society is under a strange illusion that if you were just to speak the truth to somebody else, that they would suddenly understand you, and that there are bad people in the world, where in fact almost everything, I think, is sincere, and people manifest themselves so differently and understanding so differently because there is no social unity, because of the fragmentation of society. And that, in fact, to connect with people is an art, and a beautiful art. Within us is a vast world of different voices that have been aggregated together, just like the formation of a sun in a stellar nursery. And the meeting between two people can be a very beautiful connection between certain material that's inside me with certain material that's inside you. If we're able to wake up from the usual stone-faced social pleasantries. And today in our frenetic modern world, people are very much concealed and restricting themselves as the machines take over. People themselves feel themselves much less. But of course, on the other side, what is being revealed by the things that I'm saying today is that There are worlds of possibilities if only you can enter them. It's not so easy. It's not just about expressing yourself like many New Age fools think. And to meet somebody and share something, it's not really about knowing the truth or convincing somebody, but about an alchemy of different aspects inside that can develop trust together, can bridge something together, and can create something together. We must, as I have said, be able to hit every note on that octave. Why was it that the United States dropped 2 nuclear bombs on Japan in World War II? Japan, such a beautiful and ancient, venerable, esteemed nation, the nation of cherry blossoms and Mount Fuji. How could anybody do that? America did that because it does not have a deep culture of its own. It appears to be beginning again, having lost 2,000 years of European history. And having nothing of its own, it cannot value cherry blossoms. It cannot value Mount Fuji, and does not question dropping a nuclear bomb on these people. And that's a harsh reality, because humanity, when Gurdjieff talks about the reciprocal destruction, that's exactly what he means. He means that people who are not aligned together cannot understand each other, cannot value what the other has made even over centuries, and will destroy it. This week many harsh things have happened to me, and I have the sense that they are planetary effects, a planetary message. I've gone too far, I've pushed too much, I try to involve other people. And the planet will only allow us to develop in a certain way, in a certain narrow avenue. Okay, that's enough for this week. Goodbye.
A friend, don't look to a stranger. You know in the end I'll always be there. And when you're in doubt, and when you're in danger, take a look all around, and I'll be there. Thinking of the right words to say. I know they don't sound the way I planned them to be, but if you wait around a while, I'll make you fall for me. I promise you I will. When your day is through, so is your temper. You know what to do. Always be there. Sometimes when I shout, it's not what's intended. These words just come out with no cross to bear. Ooh, I'm sorry, but I'm just thinking of the right words to say. I know they don't sound the way I planned them to be, but if you wait around a while, I'll make you fall for me. I promise you. I'm sorry that I'm just thinking of the right words to say. I know